how these 55 Hollywood actors transformed. Then and now, 2026. They were once the men America watched on giant screens and living room televisions, young, magnetic, untouchable. But decades later, their faces tell very different stories. Some still carry the same power. Some have changed so much fans barely recognize them. And some are now remembered through their final public moments. Stay with us, because every transformation reveals something Hollywood never shows clearly: what fame looks like after time wins. Al Pacino. Al Pacino was never the kind of star who needed perfect beauty to dominate the screen. What made him unforgettable was the pressure behind his eyes, the silence before he exploded, and the way he could turn one line into a warning. In The Godfather, he began as Michael Corleone, a quiet young man pulled into darkness. By Scarface, he had become something louder, wilder, and impossible to ignore. Decades later, his face carries age differently, not as a loss, but as evidence of a life spent inside some of cinema's most demanding roles. Do you still remember the first time you saw him on screen? Now in his mid-80s, Pacino no longer has the same sharp physical presence he had in the 1970s, but his voice timing and intensity still belong to a rare class of performers. Youth changed. The legend did not. Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone did not simply play fighters. He became the emotional symbol of people who refused to stay down. When Rocky arrived, audiences saw more than a boxer from Philadelphia. They saw a man carrying hope, pain, and stubborn courage in every step. Later, Rambo turned him into a different kind of figure, wounded, intense, and built for survival. Over the years, Stallone's body has naturally changed, and the camera now catches a man shaped by age, work injuries, and decades of pressure. Which Stallone role still gives you chills. What makes his transformation powerful is not just the difference between youth and today. It is the way his screen image matured from physical force into personal endurance. He is no longer only the man throwing punches in the ring. He is the artist who created characters that helped millions believe losing was not the end. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise built his career on motion. From the cockpit of Top Gun to the impossible chases of Mission Impossible, he became the rare movie star whose name still promises speed, danger, and commitment. In the 1980s, he had the clean-cut confidence of a young American idol. As the years passed, that boyish energy evolved into something more disciplined and calculated. Cruise's transformation is unusual because he has not retreated from action as he entered his 60s. Instead, he has leaned further into it, turning risk into part of his brand. Would you still watch him do one more impossible stunt? His face shows maturity now, but his pace remains almost defiant. For many viewers, Cruise represents a disappearing kind of Hollywood professionalism. A performer who treats spectacle like a personal responsibility and keeps chasing the next breathtaking moment. Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford became the face of adventure without ever seeming polished beyond reach. As Han Solo, he carried sarcasm, charm, and danger in the same crooked smile. As Indiana Jones, he gave audiences a hero who could bleed, stumble, complain, and still keep moving. That human quality made him different from the untouchable action figures of other eras. Today, Ford's transformation is visible in his slower movements and weathered expression, but those changes only add weight to the characters he once made famous. Which Harrison Ford hero feels most unforgettable to you? His appeal has always come from the feeling that he was not pretending to be perfect. Age has not erased that. It has deepened it. Ford now looks like a man who has carried entire franchises, survived the demands of fame, and remained stubbornly himself in an industry built on reinvention. Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio's transformation is one of the most recognizable in modern film history because audiences watched him grow up in public. In Titanic, he became the romantic face of an entire generation with a youthful look that seemed almost frozen in the late 1990s. But DiCaprio did not remain trapped inside that image. He took darker, heavier, more demanding roles, working with major directors, and slowly reshaping himself from heartthrob into serious, dramatic actor. Did you first notice him in romance drama or crime films? Today, his appearance is more mature and his screen choices reflect a performer less interested in charm than complexity. The boyish softness has given way to a broader presence, one that fits stories about power, obsession, corruption, and survival. His change reminds viewers that lasting fame often requires leaving behind the very image that first made you beloved. Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt entered Hollywood with the kind of face that could have limited him to simple leading man roles. Instead, he kept taking chances. After becoming a symbol of 1990s cool, he moved through romance satire, war stories, crime dramas, and offbeat character work with surprising range. In Fight Club, he captured rebellion. In Legends of the Fall, he carried mythic beauty. Later, his performances became quieter, stranger, and more textured. Which version of Brad Pitt do you remember most clearly? His transformation is not just about gray hair or a more seasoned expression. It is about a star who learned how to loosen his image and let imperfection become interesting. Today, Pitt carries the ease of someone who no longer needs to prove he belongs. The youthful glow may have shifted, but his ability to hold attention without forcing it remains one of his strongest gifts. Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro's career was never built on glamour. It was built on immersion. He became known for entering a role with frightening focus, whether he was playing a lonely cab driver, a raging athlete, a gangster, or a broken father. In his younger years, De Niro's intensity felt sharp enough to cut through the screen. His eyes could make silence feel dangerous. Over time, that raw menace turned into something broader: authority, memory, and control. Which De Niro performance do you think defines him best? Now in his 80s, he remains a figure of serious cinematic weight. His face has aged, but the intelligence behind his performances still registers immediately. De Niro's transformation shows how an actor can move from volcanic energy to commanding stillness without losing credibility. He does not need to dominate a scene loudly anymore. His history enters the room before he speaks. Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington carries a rare combination of discipline and emotional command. From Malcolm X to Training Day, he has shown that power on screen does not always need volume. Sometimes it comes from posture, pause, and absolute conviction. Early in his career, he brought elegance and moral force to roles that required dignity under pressure. Later, he explored darker corners, proving he could be noble, dangerous, wounded, or unpredictable with equal control. What Denzel moment stayed with you the longest? His transformation has been remarkably steady. He has not chased youth or leaned on nostalgia. Instead, he has grown into a figure of authority, someone whose presence can reshape the energy of a scene before the dialogue even begins. As he has aged, the polish has become less about appearance and more about mastery. Washington remains compelling because he makes experience feel alive. Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks became beloved because he made goodness feel believable. He was never the loudest star in the room, and that was exactly why audiences trusted him. In Forrest Gump, he gave innocence a lasting emotional shape. In Castaway, he carried long stretches of loneliness with almost no one beside him. His younger image was approachable rather than flashy, built on warmth, humor, and sincerity. Which Tom Hanks movie feels closest to your heart? As he has grown older, that familiar gentleness has become even more central to his public image. The face is different now, of course, but the emotional access remains. Hanks's transformation is quieter than many Hollywood stories, yet deeply meaningful. He shows that a performer does not have to appear dangerous or mysterious to endure. Sometimes the strongest screen presence is the one that makes people feel safe enough to feel. Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp built his fame by refusing to look ordinary on screen. At a time when many actors chased conventional hero roles, he leaned toward outsiders, dreamers, misfits, and strange souls with unusual rhythms. Edward Scissorhands gave him a fragile, almost silent sadness. Captain Jack Sparrow turned him into a global pop culture figure whose gestures, voice, and walk became instantly recognizable. Which Johnny Depp character surprised you the most? His transformation has been complicated both visually and publicly. The youthful mystery that once surrounded him has become rougher, more unpredictable, and marked by time. Still, Depp's appeal has always depended less on perfection than on eccentricity. He does not need to look like the young man from his earliest films to remain memorable. His career shows how a star can become iconic by choosing oddness over safety and imagination over predictability. George Clooney. George Clooney's rise felt almost old-fashioned in the best way. He moved from television fame into movie stardom with an ease that reminded many viewers of classic Hollywood. In ER, he had the relaxed confidence of a doctor audiences wanted to trust. In Ocean's 11, that same charm became sharper, cooler, and more playful. Clooney's transformation has been graceful because he never fought too hard against age. He allowed silver hair and maturity to become part of the image. Is Clooney the last true classic leading man? Unlike stars who depend on constant reinvention, he has built power through consistency with restraint, timing, and style. Today, he appears less like a young romantic lead and more like a man who understands exactly how fame works. That awareness gives him a smooth authority that feels increasingly rare in modern celebrity culture. Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins did not become unforgettable by chasing noise. He mastered stillness, precision, and the kind of calm that can make a scene feel dangerous before anything happens. In The Silence of the Lambs, he created one of cinema's most chilling characters, with very little screen time, proving that control can be more terrifying than volume. Earlier and later in his career, he showed impressive range, moving from historical drama to intimate character studies with the same quiet authority. Can one stare change an entire movie? As Hopkins entered his later years, his image shifted from commanding actor to living master of the craft. His face now carries age, but his mind, humor, and artistic curiosity remain central to how audiences see him. He is not remembered only for one famous role. He represents discipline, intelligence, and the rare ability to make silence speak louder than dialogue. Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood's transformation stretches across more than one lifetime of Hollywood history. He began as the lean, silent figure of the Western, a man whose narrowed eyes and spare words could define an entire scene. Later, he became a filmmaker with a hard, reflective style, directing stories about guilt, justice, violence, regret, and aging. His career did not stay locked inside one image. It expanded from gunslinger to actor-director, from myth to memory. How many stars have lasted across so many eras? Now in his mid-90s, Eastwood naturally appears far from the rugged figure audiences knew decades ago, but his cultural presence remains enormous. What makes his transformation so striking is the distance between the young screen outlaw and the elder storyteller. He reminds viewers that a legend can outgrow the character that made him famous and still keep shaping cinema long after most careers would have ended. Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson built a screen identity that felt unpredictable from the first moment he appeared. He could be charming, cruel, funny, wounded, or completely unhinged sometimes within the same performance. In One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he gave rebellion a human heartbeat. In The Shining, he turned a slow mental collapse into one of film history's most quoted nightmares. Nicholson's younger image was not clean or polished. It was electric, mischievous, and slightly dangerous. Do you remember his grin more than his words? In later life, he stepped away from constant public attention, which only made his past work feel more mysterious. His transformation is different because absence became part of his legend. Audiences do not see him everywhere anymore, but they still feel the force of what he left behind. Nicholson remains the kind of actor whose energy cannot be copied without becoming imitation. Michael Caine. Michael Caine carried a voice and manner that could make even a simple sentence sound memorable. He emerged from British cinema with a working-class sharpness, then crossed into international stardom without losing that grounded quality. From crime stories to dramas, comedies, thrillers, and later major franchise roles, Caine showed an ability to adapt without becoming invisible. He was stylish but never empty, elegant but never unreachable. Can you hear his voice just by seeing his name? As he aged, his movement slowed and his roles became more reflective, often carrying the weight of memory, mentorship, or regret. His transformation feels dignified because he allowed age to become part of his storytelling rather than something to hide. Caine's long career reminds audiences that charisma is not only found in youth. Sometimes it lives in delivery timing and the unmistakable rhythm of a performer who knows exactly who he is. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson became famous with a screen presence built on heat speed and emotional volatility. In the Lethal Weapon films, he brought a restless energy that made danger feel personal rather than distant. In Braveheart, he connected physical force with sacrifice, turning historical drama into a large-scale emotional experience for many viewers. His early image was intense, athletic, and direct, shaped by a combination of humor and fury. Which Mel Gibson performance first caught your attention? Over time, his appearance has become heavier with age, and his public life has included controversy, which makes his transformation more complicated than a simple before and after comparison. Still, as a performer and filmmaker, he remains tied to some of the most recognizable moments in late 20th century cinema. His story shows how fame can be powerful, unstable, admired, criticized, and remembered all at once. Richard Gere. Richard Gere's appeal was never about being loud. He brought a smooth, restrained kind of magnetism that made him stand apart from more aggressive leading men. In American Gigolo, he became associated with style and distance. In Pretty Woman, he softened that image into romance charm and emotional awakening. Gere's younger screen persona often suggested a man who held something back, and that quiet reserve became part of his attraction. Was he Hollywood's most graceful romantic lead? As the years passed, his features became gentler, and his public image moved toward reflection, spirituality, and a more private rhythm. His transformation feels natural because he never depended on explosive gestures. He relied on calm eye contact and a sense of inner life. Today, Gere represents a kind of mature elegance that does not beg for attention. It simply stays in the frame and lets time do the speaking. Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman changed the idea of what a leading man could look and feel like. He did not arrive as a traditional symbol of glamour. Instead, he brought nervous intelligence, vulnerability, awkwardness, and emotional detail to the center of major films. In The Graduate, he captured the confusion of a generation. In later work, he kept finding characters who were difficult, funny, wounded, or deeply human. His greatness came from specificity, not grand posing. Did he make ordinary people feel more visible on screen? With age, Hoffman's presence softened, but his contribution remains sharp. He opened doors for actors who did not fit the old heroic mold. His transformation is meaningful because it shows that screen power can come from hesitation, uncertainty, and truth. He proved that a face does not need to be perfect to become iconic. It only needs to reveal something audiences recognize in themselves. Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas became one of the defining faces of ambition in American film. He had the polished surface of success, but his best roles often revealed what was cracking underneath. In Wall Street, he gave greed a voice that became part of cultural memory. In Fatal Attraction and other dramas, he explored desire, fear, ego, and consequence with a sharp adult edge. His younger image carried confidence, privilege, and risk in equal measure. Do you see him more as a hero or a warning sign? As Douglas aged, that sleek intensity turned into seasoned authority. He also became more publicly associated with survival after serious illness, giving his later image a human dimension beyond the characters he played. His transformation works because the smooth young operator became an older figure with perspective. The charm did not disappear. It became more reflective, less reckless, and heavier with experience. Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan gave sophistication a modern action shape. Before and after James Bond, he carried himself with a polish that made danger look controlled rather than chaotic. As 007, he combined elegance, irony, and physical confidence, helping define the spy for a new audience in the 1990s. His suit's voice and measured expression became part of his cinematic signature. Was he the Bond you grew up watching? Over time, Brosnan's appearance became softer, but his sense of style remained strongly intact. He did not have to cling to youth to seem compelling. Instead, he moved toward a calmer, more seasoned version of masculinity. His transformation is appealing because it feels balanced, less sharp around the edges, but still composed, still articulate, still unmistakably refined. Brosnan reminds viewers that aging can add warmth to elegance without taking away the confidence that made a star memorable in the first place. Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant became famous by turning embarrassment into charm. His pauses, stammers, half-smiles, and self-conscious timing made him unlike the polished romantic leads before him. In films such as Four Weddings and A Funeral Notting Hill and Love Actually, he played men who seemed uncertain, funny, flawed, and strangely lovable. His appeal came from imperfection arranged with perfect comic rhythm. Did his awkwardness make him more charming? As Grant aged, he cleverly moved away from the sweet romantic image and leaned into sharper, more cynical, sometimes mischievous roles. That shift made his transformation more interesting than simple nostalgia. The boyish figure of the 1990s became a performer with bite wit and darker comic intelligence. Grant's later career proves that aging can free an actor from old expectations. He did not remain the dream boyfriend forever. He became something more surprising. Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer had a screen presence that mixed beauty with distance. In Top Gun, he was cool, competitive, and controlled, creating a rival who became almost as memorable as the hero. In The Doors, he went deeper, giving Jim Morrison a strange blend of poetry, danger, and self-destruction. Later as Batman, and in many character roles, Kilmer showed a restless hunger to avoid being just another handsome face, which Val Kilmer role still stays with you. His later years brought serious health challenges after throat cancer treatment, and his voice became part of a deeply emotional public story. When he passed away in 2025 at age 65, fans looked back at a career that had always contained tension between fame and artistic searching. Kilmer's transformation is moving because it reminds us how fragile the human voice can be and how powerful a screen memory can remain. John Travolta. John Travolta's career began with movement rhythm and an energy that seemed to light up the frame. In Saturday Night Fever, he gave disco culture a cinematic body. In Grease, he turned teenage swagger into something audiences kept celebrating for generations. But Travolta's story did not stop with youth dancing or leather jackets. He later surprised viewers with darker, stranger, and more mature turns, especially when Pulp Fiction reintroduced him to a new era. Can one dance scene define an entire decade? As he aged, his appearance and career path changed, but his connection to American pop culture remained unusually strong. Travolta's transformation is full of reinvention: heartthrob dancer, dramatic actor, comeback figure, and familiar screen veteran. Few performers are remembered through so many different moods. He is proof that a career can fall, rise, shift, and still keep its signature pulse. Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox became a beloved figure because he seemed to move faster than the world around him. In Back to the Future, his timing, humor, and youthful panic made Marty McFly feel instantly alive. On television, he had the quick intelligence of someone always one beat ahead. His early image was light, energetic, and full of comic speed. Then his life changed after Parkinson's disease entered the story, and the public saw a different kind of bravery. Is courage sometimes more powerful than fame? Fox's transformation is not only physical, it is moral and emotional. He turned a private diagnosis into advocacy research support and public honesty. For audiences who grew up watching him race through time, his later life carries a deeper message. He is no longer just the young actor with perfect timing. He is a symbol of resilience, humor, and dignity under pressure. Robert Redford. Robert Redford represented a kind of American beauty that felt tied to sunlight, open roads, and quiet confidence. In Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, he helped create one of cinema's most beloved outlaw partnerships. In The Sting, he carried elegance with a sly undercurrent. But Redford was never only a handsome star. He became a director, a producer, and one of the most important champions of independent film through the Sundance movement. Did his greatest legacy go beyond acting? As he grew older, his golden image naturally gave way to a more reflective presence, but the influence expanded. When he died in 2025 at age 89, the loss felt larger than one career because he had helped shape how American film discovers new voices. Redford's transformation moved from screen idol to cultural architect. His face belonged to classic Hollywood, but his impact reached far into the future. Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson carries a physical presence that feels carved rather than styled. Tall, grave, and emotionally grounded, he first became widely celebrated for serious dramatic work, especially in Schindler's List. That role showed his ability to hold grief, responsibility, and moral awakening without overplaying them. Years later, Taken unexpectedly turned him into an older action icon, proving that intensity does not belong only to young men. Did you expect him to become an action star? His transformation is unusual because the second phase of his fame arrived after many actors began slowing down. Neeson's face now has a weathered severity that fits stories about loss, revenge, protection, and endurance. He does not need quick charm or flashy movement. His strength comes from weight voice and the feeling that his characters have already survived more than they explain. That gravity keeps audiences watching. Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis changed the action hero by making him feel like a regular man trapped in impossible trouble. In Die Hard, he was not a polished warrior. He was tired, sarcastic, barefoot, wounded, and somehow still willing to fight. That made him different from the invincible muscle icons of the era. He brought humor into danger and made vulnerability part of toughness. Was John McClane the most human action hero? In recent years, Willis's transformation has become deeply emotional for fans. After his family shared his aphasia diagnosis and later frontotemporal dementia diagnosis, audiences began looking at his career with even more tenderness. His retirement from acting marked the end of an era for a performer who gave everyday courage a familiar face. Today, his legacy is not measured only by explosions or famous one-liners. It lives in the affection people still feel for the man behind them. Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner became associated with wide landscapes, quiet masculinity, and characters who seemed pulled between duty and desire. In Dances with Wolves, he directed and starred in a film that connected personal reinvention with the American frontier. In The Bodyguard, he played restraint against glamour, creating a romantic image built more on protection than seduction. Costner's younger appeal was calm, athletic, and unforced. Do you prefer him as a cowboy soldier or romantic lead? Over time, he leaned into roles that matched his age instead of pretending nothing had changed. Westerns, family dramas, and stories about legacy allowed him to use maturity as a strength. His transformation feels rooted in place, open fields, hard choices, and men carrying private burdens. Costner remains effective because he understands stillness. He does not have to rush a scene. He lets silence, posture, and landscape do part of the work. Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe's face is one of the most expressive instruments in modern acting. He never needed conventional handsomeness to hold attention. He had angles, tension, intensity, and a fearlessness that made him impossible to ignore. In Platoon, he gave war a wounded spiritual dimension. In Spider-Man, he turned comic book villainy into theatrical madness with memorable force. Across independent films and major studio projects, Dafoe built a career by choosing risk over comfort. Is he one of cinema's boldest character actors? His transformation has not softened his impact. If anything, age has made his features more cinematic, giving directors even more texture to work with. He can appear gentle, terrifying, tragic, or strange within minutes. Dafoe's power lies in his refusal to become predictable. He shows that aging does not have to reduce an actor's range. It can sharpen the tools that made him unique. Ian McKellen. Ian McKellen brought the authority of the stage into blockbuster cinema without losing depth. Long before millions knew him as Gandalf or Magneto, he had already built a distinguished career in theater, especially through Shakespeare. What made his later fame remarkable was the way he reached new generations without simplifying his craft. As Gandalf, he became warmth, wisdom, and moral guidance. As Magneto, he carried pain, history, and dangerous conviction. Which side of McKellen do you admire most? His transformation is a bridge between classical performance and modern fantasy culture. Age has added to his presence rather than weakening it because so many of his most famous roles depend on memory command and emotional authority. McKellen's legacy is not just that he appeared in beloved franchises. It is that he made them feel grander, more human, and more deeply connected to old storytelling traditions. Time changes every face, but it also reveals what fame was really built on. Some of these Hollywood legends aged with elegance, some with visible struggle, and some left us before we were ready to say goodbye. But here is the real question. Do we remember these stars for how they looked in their prime, or for the emotions they gave us on screen? Tell us which transformation surprised you the most, and which actor still holds a special place in your memory. For more stories like this, follow and subscribe to Ivory Fame Vault.